I'll figure it out one day.
Matt, I always got to mess with you, man.
You didn't have to. You didn't have to till I became a Gator. Then.
Hey, look.
Yeah, that's right. Go Gators.
Yes, sir.
That's what's up.
Oh, here you guys go.
About to just
I got to
pump
mess
you right
with
out
Matt.
of here.
I always got to mess with Matt, and I always got to mess with Connor.
About the Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, you know me, Matt. Never mind.
Ashton, you want to give it one more minute, then we'll get started?
Yep. I'm giving it one more minute. Have a few more people trying to connect.
I figure there are a lot of people coming over from the other call.
Yes, they are.
My man's Connor with the Grey's Anatomy.
Always hating Pat.
No, I like the show. I bet.
All right, we're gonna get started. Thanks everybody for joining. My name's Ashton Pills, and I'm really excited for this session of Grow the Game. We have 3 really fantastic panelists that are gonna share their journey as a manager and then working their way up in the industry. So my co-host is Jake. Jake, go ahead.
Hey everyone, thank you guys all for joining. Hope everyone and their families are doing safe, staying safe and healthy. The way we're gonna work this today is we're going to do this panel first, and we'll have our 3 panelists give a little rundown about themselves and any advice they have for everybody else in the call. And then we're going to go right into the breakout rooms after. And so we'll do 2 or 3 breakout sessions depending on the numbers we get. So let's swing it over to Connor.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. And have the opportunity to talk to you guys and get this panel started. The idea of the panel kind of came from on the manager calls that Ashton and Jake have been hosting and the breakout rooms that I've been in. One of the biggest questions I've gotten is, how was it after you ended your time as a manager? And after being asked that 4 or 5 different times, I thought it was super important, that we talk about the kind of steps after and have some diversity on the panel with different journeys, because not everyone's journey is the same, but we can pick, pieces from each one and take that information and form your own. So I thought that was super important, and I'm super grateful for Ashton and Jake being willing to team up on this and help this idea come to fruition. And definitely got to plug in Rising Coaches as a tool also. So if you're not a part of that, definitely join. It's something I use daily. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. And I'm going to, introduce myself as Connor Williams. I am the head JV and freshman coach at Crestview High School in the Panhandle of Florida. I was the student manager for the women's basketball team at the University of Florida, or West Florida, sorry. And I guess we're going to introduce ourselves and then we'll go into our journey. So I'm going to pass it over to my guy, Pat, who's on the panel with us.
Good afternoon, good evening, good people. My name is Pat Richardson, from Montgomery, Alabama. I am currently an assistant coach at Alabama A&M University. I was a GA there prior to this position, and before GA, I did my great duties as a manager. And now I'll pass it on to our next panelist, Ms. Lauren.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Lauren Bernstein. I'm the Director of Basketball Operations for Cleveland State University Women's Basketball, originally from Orlando, in Orlando currently, and was also a manager at the University of Florida for the women's basketball team for my junior and senior years.
Great. Lauren, do you just kind of want to go into your journey where you started and just kind of follow your path?
Sure. So I was at Florida from 2012 to 2016. I knew I always wanted to do something in sports, but not medicine because science is my worst subject. Um, and I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me that was on the practice squad for the women's basketball team. So the summer going to my junior year, I was like, I really need to do something. I need an internship. I applied to a bunch of those like NBA internships that have like thousands of applicants. And my brother Ben was like, well, contact Serena, the Dobo for the women's team and see what you can do. So I just like emailed her and brought me in. She's like, we can't offer you anything, but if you want to volunteer, we'd be happy to have you in the office. So the summer going into my junior year, I just strictly volunteered my time in the office, doing anything from updating recruiting databases to helping with all their camps, mail outs every 2 weeks, and other managerial duties that we know of. Being able to travel was really nice as well. And then from there, I thought I needed more experience, but I wanted to get out of Florida because I just grown up here and I was like, new experiences. So I went up north to DC and did grad school at George Washington University, with the plan of getting a GA position with the women's basketball team. But by the time I had gotten up there, it had already been filled and I was like, oh God, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I just cold applied to an internship with the Washington Wizards and ended up getting it. So I worked with the Wizards for the 16-17 season as the sales event planning intern, which is just a fancy word for keeping inventory of season ticket member gifts, a lot of stuff to do with season ticket members, like events like autograph signings, renewal season, like kind of whatever they needed help in doing with that. And then from there, the summer of 2017, I was able to work with the Washington Mystics, the WNBA team, as the basketball operations intern. Kind of just doing whatever they needed, running the clock at practice, being in charge of music, being team liaison for all the visiting teams if they needed anything, pre, during, or post game, and getting to experience that. And then the 17-18 season, I went back to the Wizards as a basketball operations intern in the front office. And at that time, Ernie Grunfeld was the GM. So me and 3 other interns were just grinding away every day of updating rosters and draft boards and player biographies and using Synergy to track box outs and rebounds and all this kind of stuff that they kind of wanted us to do. And then summer 2018 went back to the Mystics and worked with them again. But in doing so, like the first Wizards internship was kind of the foot in the door. And so I was on the sales floor with inside sales, group sales, account executives, any other kind of like events positions. So I just networked that entire, I guess just say, season of people on that floor. And anytime I had to go run an errand, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Meeting these people, like I became best friends with the mail guy, Mike, like still friends to this day, like, using that as an opportunity to network and keep in contact with people, because my supervisor, Nicole, from my first Wizards internship put in a word to the Dobo for the Mystics. And I just met with her like an informal, just want to know what you do. I'm really interested if you have anything available. And then a couple weeks later, she called me back and I was hired on. And then I used Nicole and Maria to put a word into Greg Kershaw at the Washington Wizards to say I was really interested in working in basketball operations, and was able to get an interview and hired on. And so just, we always talk about networking, but it really does make a difference. And it's about who you know, but you also have to put that effort in to like get your name out there and like put yourself out there. And most important thing is creating relationships before like asking for something, in a sense. Like you want to have that relationship so when you do need something, they're more than willing to help you. So after my second internship with the Wizards, I'm graduated grad school May 2018. I applied to 75 Dobo positions, I think it was. some were like special assistants to the head coach positions, and didn't really like have much going on. And then I got a call from Big East Conference headquarters in Manhattan for an internship. And I went in for the interview. They offered it to me, and I was kind of 50-50 at the time, because I always told myself I never ever wanted to live in New York City. But it actually ended up being like the best experience, like internship experience I've had. Like, absolutely loved it. So I worked as a basketball operations assistant for the Big East Conference for men's and women's basketball, in helping anything from net rankings on the men's side and tracking that for all 10 Big East men's basketball teams week to week. That was like my entire Monday was like 3 hours on updating net rankings, RPI standings for women's basketball, helping with the men's and women's basketball tournaments. As we know, Big East tournament is at MSG. So that's a whole nother experience I got to be a part of being on the court at MSG, being liaisons for these, all the teams. And then for the women's side, I was able to kind of have a hand in performances during timeouts, and working with DePaul, who's like, it's at their arena, Wintrust Arena, and ensuring that all of that's put together and the PA reads were correct and the right information and all that good stuff. And then so Big East was from August 2018 to May 2019. And then I was applying to DOBO positions again. I probably applied to, I'd say, anywhere from 50 to 70 DOBO positions, but also using my network again. And then also, from the Wizards, from Florida, from the Big East. I mean, I don't know if you guys know who Stu Jackson is. He's a former player for the Knicks, like, was able to use his connections on the men's side and other people on the women's side. But, and then I got hired at Cleveland State, July 2019, through a coach I worked with at Florida back when I was a junior in college. So I just finished my first season at Cleveland State, and on to the next season. But yes, that's my journey.
Thanks, Lauren. That's pretty good stuff. Can I pass it over to Pat Richardson, bucket getter on all social medias?
Well, that's me, man. I'm a bucket, man. Let's see how I want to do this. All right, cool. First and foremost, I just want to thank Ashton and Jake and Rising Coaches for putting this together. Great opportunity to speak on this. I'd like to thank the other panelists, Connor and Lauren. Connor hit me up while I was out walking my 5 miles, like, hey, Pat, I think it's a real great opportunity for you. Do you want to do this? And I'm like, sure, man, why not? So here we are today with this. All right, so I took the time to write down some notes so I can, stay on point, stay together. But my journey started, possibly back in 2008 my freshman year, when I first attended Alabama A&M University. I was the third manager. Didn't kind of know what I was doing. I just knew I loved ball and I wanted to be around it. So, as I was, going through the years, man, I had to deal with about 15 different personalities. And that was different from dealing with personalities from high school. Now I jumped back to high school because I played a little ball back in high school, at AAU, but I really, did a lot of management as well for the high school. Dealing with those guys compared to dealing with on the college level was totally different, because in high school, you're dealing with people right there in the city. And then once you got to college, you're dealing with people from, different areas. So it's kind of was tough to try to balance that one, man. Manager duties, man. It woke me up. I realized that I had to be the first one in. I had to be the last one to leave. And when people say that, like, that is something that you really have to invest yourself in. Like, it was tough trying to, balance how do I be the first one in on a 5 a.m. practice, because our coach during the time, he always wanted managers to be at, in the gym an hour before time. And so when you think about a 5 a.m. practice, you're like, dang, I got to get up at 3 so I can be dressed by 3:30 and at the gym by 4, I'm sorry. And so, if this is something that you love, you're going to get up and do it. So that is something that I love. So I was able to get up and do it. So let's see what's next. Also in my first year, through my journey, man, I was able to, travel the world. You never know where this game will take you. And, a lot of places, first year managers don't get to travel. And so with me, I was one that, went on every trip and pretty much had, most of the responsibilities. But one thing that was a setback on my first year as a manager was my grades started slipping. And so with my grades slipping, I had to reevaluate myself. And by doing that, I had to, review one of the quotes that coaches always say. And they would tell you, look in the mirror. Like they always telling the players that. And so I took that upon myself, was like, look, if this is something that I really want to do, be around the team, I'm gonna have to get my grades up. And from that point on, I mean, it was no trouble after that. So after my first year, I get into my second year. Second year started off a little rocky. I was telling the panelists before we got on, I slipped up again. And with me slipping up, I actually missed a 5 a.m. practice. And if you don't think that, a coach noticed things, you may think you're just doing something and the coach doesn't notice. Trust me, they notice everything that you're doing. They might not say anything, but they definitely notice it. So, like I said, I missed the 5 a.m. practice, fired right there on the spot. So now, one thing I didn't want to do, I didn't want to be a regular student. So the next few practices, knowing that I'm fired, I still would show up. I would sit up in the bleachers and try to hide myself. But like I said, you think a coach don't notice things? He definitely noticed things. So I was fortunate enough to be loyal to, the people in front of me, meaning my head manager and the other managers, coaching staff as well. And one game went by and the coach asked the head manager, he was like, do you need some help? And the manager was like, yeah, I need some help. And that next day, I'm telling you, I saw a text message in all capital letters, you're back. And I'm talking about, that was like one of the happiest days of my life. I was like, man, yes, I got it back. So, my mindset changed. I was like, look, whatever it takes to, get things going, I got to do it. And so now, which brings me to a turning point in my journey. As I'm going through my journey of managing at Alabama A&M, what I'm saying, I had to change a position. And now I'm going into, head manager, having the responsibilities of guys or young ladies working underneath me. And then we have a tragedy hit we had our tragedy hit our staff. And so the tragedy what hit our staff was one of our assistant coaches passed away. And so as he passed away, we had one head coach and another assistant coach, then it was me. And so now I really had to, evaluate myself, because I knew I always wanted to, kind of go into the coaching field. But now as the opportunity presented itself, it was time to, put away childish things and, become grown, I guess. So going through it, I was able to, navigate networking. I became fluent with understanding synergy, how to scout, how to do, certain recruiting things. You name it, I was doing it while on top of still doing manager duties. So I'm now in a position where I'm wearing, several hats. And, I'm always thankful of the opportunity because, I was able to, how can I say it, be on the court early. And so upon graduation, we had a coaching change. And through the coaching change, it was, the new coach and the student coach was myself. And so as me being loyal to the program, always, not bad mouthing anything, I was able to move up in the rankings and, land a GA position here at the school. And as I landed the GA position at the school, responsibilities became greater. It wasn't something that I wasn't already doing, but I was, looked upon to do them even more. And so going through GA years, great experience. And then we had another coaching change. And so with this coaching change, it was the new head coach and myself once again. So we're just the two. And then I back up the GA years, myself and that head coach. I want to shout out to T. Marsh, who is actually on here. He was the assistant coach that was hired as well at our school. Great guy. He actually is now with the Toronto Raptors as working on their staff. And so then I transitioned and moved to the next head coaching change. And as it was me and just that head coach, I have on here now, which is another assistant coach of ours, Coach Banks. Real great guy. Really found out that it was a small world that, him and I, have family relations. So, kind of like you kind of say we cousins. But getting into the special assistant to head coaching role, just by once again being loyal to the program, not bad mouthing anything. And I was able to, work for 3 years, and now I'll be going into my 4th season in this position. And that's my spiel, my journey, all at one school. And I'm so fortunate and grateful of it.
Great, Coach. Thank you so much. Connor, you want to wrap up and share your journey before we get into the question part of it?
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why my voice is scratchy today, so you'll have to bear with me on that. But I am, like I said, the former women's basketball manager at the University of West Florida. It's a Division II school in the Panhandle. I was there from 2016 to 2019. Going into college, I had a couple of different options of where I wanted to kind of do my manager position. I always knew I wanted to do that. I've always known I wanted to be in college coaching, and finances kind of play a huge part into those things. And West Florida ended up being the cheapest option as far as my schooling went. So I went with that route. I kind of set myself up in high school. I dual enrolled, so I got a lot of my normal credits out of the way, like your AA. And I dual enrolled and got that completely done. So I went into college at 17 years old as a junior. And I knew I wanted to kind of take my time. I was thinking to be a PE major, like that's what made sense to be a basketball coach. And at the time, I thought to myself, I want to be a college coach, but I'd be okay with high school. So I needed something kind of practical. And I then thought to myself, all right, well, I've put myself so far ahead. When I graduate, I'll be 19 with a bachelor's degree. Who in their right mind is going to hire a 19-year-old? So I decided to space my junior and senior out into 3 years and be, what we kind of laugh at as a super senior. And really, I was only 20 years old getting a bachelor's degree. But during my time at West Florida, I was super fortunate. My first season, we had the winningest season in program history. We went to the Elite Eight, and for Division II folks, that's like the Final Four of our division, and it's treated as such. I got on my first plane ride ever to Cleveland, Ohio. It was a great experience, and was just a lot of fun, and kind of gave me a super drive. During that season, as the first-year manager and the only male in the entire women's program, I wasn't going to be able to travel. D2 doesn't have the budget. It would have been an extra hotel room. And it didn't seem like it was going to be feasible. And I fortunately have family in Tennessee, and two of our away trips, our first two away trips of the season, were to our conference foes, Lee University, Shorter University, and then Union and Christian Brothers, and they're all in the Tennessee, Georgia area. And so I had family within an hour of each of those two road trips. So I drove myself. I was like, you know what, I'm super dedicated to this program. I want to do this. I want to be a part of it. I want to show my coaches like I'm in it, regardless of if the opportunity is there for me to travel. I'm going to do what I can on my own dime because that's how important it was to me. And it kind of paid off and took a turn that I didn't expect. I was doing it because, number one, it was cool that I got to see family, in the middle of the semester that I haven't probably seen in two years or so. And then number two, I wanted to be around my team. I wanted to be around the game, and to get to experience, different places like that at 18 was a cool thing. So went on those two road trips, kind of surprised my coach at one, even though I told her I was coming. I don't think she thought I would actually show up. And so I got there, did those road trips, and then we got back to Pensacola and got called into her office, and she was like, I've never had a manager that took his own money, got hotel rooms, and came to like away games. Like, who does that, especially at 18 years old? And I was just like, well, coach, I just, I had the free time, I had the means, I wanted to do it. And she was like, well, we're going to travel you for the rest of the year and see how this kind of goes. And it worked in my favor. I got to travel. I was the only manager in our program. And so I kind of had a hand in doing a lot of stuff where, like, setting up for practice, helping our GA do whatever they needed to get done, laundry, you name it, I probably did it. As I kind of furthered my manager career, I learned a little bit about synergy, kind of, helped with SID stuff. We have a great SID department at West Florida. But I really got intertwined with men's basketball and women's basketball, and really just kind of doing both, because at West Florida, our conference schedule, we travel together. So that's, we kind of save money that way. And so I really got to see both sides of it while really just working with the women's team. So going into my last year, we had some, budget things happen like that. I didn't get to travel as much as I, would have liked to or had thought I would. But that was okay, because it kind of worked out. My dad's a high school coach. If you've been on Zoom calls with me before, you probably have heard me talk about that. And I got to coach his JV team my last year at West Florida. And just by the grace of God, schedules did not conflict at all. I made practices at the high school while not ever really missing a practice or a game at West Florida. And West Florida was my priority. And it just so happened like all of our games were like during times that West Florida wasn't in town. So it just kind of worked out, and I kind of got to double dip in that and get my hands dirty with actual on the court coaching while still getting to work with a college team, which was pretty cool. But going into that, I knew I wanted to be a GA or move forward in some capacity. with a college program. And so I started applying to a bunch of schools. I wanted to, go and experience it all. And so my last year, like in between the summers of West Florida, I did AAU. I coached an AAU team. So I really just tried to boast my resume as much as possible, knowing that I have a lot of things kind of going against me. Getting in on the women's side as a male is hard anyway. And then, as much as you hate to say like age is just number, age can play a factor as far as your experience level. So I wanted to give myself enough experience as a 21-year-old because like I turned 22 in a month. So it's like I'm still really young, trying to get into this. So I just wanted to give myself as much experience. So I applied to over 55 schools this summer, or right after, during my senior year at West Florida. I went to the women's Final Four in Tampa, had a great experience networking, meeting new people. I actually met one of who I consider like a lifelong friend now, Destiny Bragman. She's a head coach in Colorado. She's on this call. But I got to meet some really cool people and experience some really cool things. And I had a couple of prospective spots that I thought were going to work out. As far as GAs or assistant positions, I was a finalist for a few assistant positions. And, as it's going to go in my profession and my career, and I've already mentally prepared for it, some positions, straight up were like, we have to hire a female. Perfectly fine. I don't fit that bill. So like, you know what, it's cool. And then, other positions are, just looking for someone a little more experienced. And that was a lot of the things I ran into. And, one of the things I wanted to get into with my journey and with the point of this call too, is to kind of paint the picture that for me, and I know for a lot of other people, it's not easy. This whole journey is not easy, and it's not easy for a lot of people in different ways, but a lot of people in the same ways, where, you might not get an email back letting you know if you, didn't get the job, or you're just kind of waiting in limbo and, not really having answers or an idea of kind of what you're doing. And that's where I was for a long time. And I had always prepared myself. I got to work with the high school team while in college. So it was cool that just as timing would work out, I got to be named the official head JV coach right after graduating West Florida, because I couldn't find a GA position. I couldn't find an assistant or anything like that. And, one of my tips as far as my application process went, I networked. I tried so hard to network and meet people. But I definitely look back now compared to how I am now, and you guys have probably all heard me talk a lot on Zoom calls. I was kind of shy and timid as far as reaching out to people last year. And I really just followed the whole thing of, finding a post on the job market on the NCAA website, or Hoop Dirt, Twitter posts, things like that. That's what I use to apply for jobs. And, as we know, most of the time when a job is posted, it's either already been filled or they have an idea of who's going to take it. So that really kind of was an eye-opening thing to me, but that's the whole process I did. And I kept a running list of places I've applied for. And I just looked at it before the Zoom call. I had 12 D1 spots I applied for, 14 Division II, 15 Division III, 5 NAIA, and 7 JUCO. And that's a lot of positions to, just kind of shoot your shot for. Now, some of them I knew I wasn't qualified for. And I knew that, a lot of jobs have the qualification, you have to have a master's degree or something of that nature. But part of me wanted to just apply to these jobs and email coaches because I wanted my name to be on their desk in some way, shape, or form. Like, they might not know who I am, but hopefully by me sending this email, and every email I sent, I did research on the program, on the coach who's there, really just did my due diligence for that. And, it didn't pay off, but the journey helped me kind of go into my high school coaching and really take full force in that, and take that opportunity to say, okay, this wasn't my path, for this year. And I'm going to take the opportunity to have hands-on coaching and get to run my own stuff and kind of fit into a program But it was one of those things where it just didn't fall for me. And the high school thing was a complete backup plan. Like I had never had an intention. And I was fortunate. I worked for my dad. I still had to go through the whole interview process. It was like a whole big thing, which some people might think is funny, but I thought it was cool just because I got that interview experience. But he knew it was a backup plan. But with me saying it was a backup plan, that's not to say I didn't give it my all, because at the end of the day, I still knew I wanted to be a college coach. And now I just knew that my path was going to be a little bit different. I wasn't going to be a GA in my first year or a college assistant. I was going to be a high school coach trying to get back into the game. And what I did mattered. How my kids looked at me mattered. The references I could get from my dad, from our principal, from other schools in our district mattered. So I put my all into that. And I really embraced the motto, be where your feet are planted. I really embraced the motto of, I wasn't meant to be a GA last year or to be an assistant coach at the collegiate level. And that was okay. And that was something I had to learn and move forward from there. I've spent 4 seasons with the high school team I'm at. 2 were volunteer, 2 as the head coach of the JV team and the assistant varsity coach, and just had a lot of success in turning a program around that was 14-30 when we took over, and then in the last 2 seasons we're 53-18. So I definitely have enjoyed that. But one of the biggest things in my journey that I find super important is I've always been told by coaches at the collegiate level and experienced high school coaches, once you get into the high school game, there's no going back to the college game. And that is a lie. There are so many coaches I've seen, especially over the last year, that have been high school coaches and been, successful high school coaches for 15 or so years. And then now they're a college assistant or they're a head coach in some cases. But my journey is kind of continuing now. I have officially resigned from the high school that I'm at. And we're kind of moving on to some stuff. I've got hopefully what will be a big announcement in the coming days or so. So yeah, that's my
Great.
journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank all 3 of you a lot. So Garrett, you have a question, you can go ahead and ask it.
Myself.
Oh, I was just wondering.
I'm gonna
what
try and mute
the-
myself first. So for all you guys, like you said, I mean, we're all managers here. What was your biggest challenge going from managing to your next position? Whether that be just your mindset or like, how did you change about how you were going about things? Just kind of talk about the challenges that you faced in that next position.
Great question.
I think for me, because I went from college to professional, is granted it was an internship, but I wasn't on the level of being in contact with the coaches and the staff and the players every single day. Sorry, it's dark outside, y'all. But that is, I'm very much a people person, very outgoing, like to make a fool of myself. And I know it's like the NBA, but there was no contact with staff, players. It was on the sales floor. People were on the phone all day, every day, trying to sell season tickets. And in 16 and 17, the Wizards were not good. I mean, like, still kind of aren't, but and I think anywhere you go in the next step or phase, whatever you want to call it, is you're gonna have to change your mindset to learning how to work with different people of different ages, backgrounds, experiences, whatever. Like, all but one of my internships, I had female supervisors or bosses, and now I'm working for a male head coach. So I'm like, I had to shift my mindset of, okay, I need to think of like how he thinks. I need to be able to predict things or put things on his radar in a way where it's not questioning him, or I have to make it seem like it's his idea sometimes. And just learning how to work with people, and your communication changes. I'm not really sure how I can like explain that, but like the way in which you talk to people will change as time goes on, because you have to grow up, and some people take things literally, some are like goofballs, but for me it was just kind of learning what they wanted and how they liked things done in their processes, and then going from there and doing what I can to like alleviate any pressure or stress or whatever it may be, like off, a weight off their shoulders, so that it's one less thing for them to worry about. But also asking questions along the way. Like, people say there aren't stupid questions, and I guess like there are stupid questions, but still ask them, because you need to be sure of what you're doing before you do the entire thing and they're like, no, that's completely wrong. Then you just wasted all your time when all you had to do was ask one simple question. So hopefully that answered your question from my viewpoint.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Dylan's got his hand raised. Dylan, you want to ask a question?
Hey, Lauren, Connor, Pat, appreciate you guys sharing tonight. I was just talking to Lauren about this, and I think it's something that's really important and something that that isn't really stressed enough. But, maybe Lauren, you start, but if you guys could talk about not only really the importance of networking with other coaches and staffs, but can you talk about the importance of networking with your own managers that you work with and learning from them along with the other ones in your conference?
Yes. Can you repeat that, Dylan? I'm sorry. Sorry, y'all. It's been a long day.
Sorry,
No, you're fine.
Anyways,
Networking.
Can you talk about the importance of not only don't talk about the importance of networking with other staffs and coaches, but I want to hear about the value that you see in networking with the managers that you work with every day and the managers within your conference.
So for me, so when I was at Florida, we had 7 managers. 2 were grad assistants. And one of them is now the Dobo at UNF, Christina Bacon. And the other, I believe Christina is the only one in collegiate athletics right now, but everyone else is involved in some type of like sport position. But networking while you're like with your team is important, because you don't know where they're going to end up. Like, Christina has helped me tremendously the past like 2 years, and like especially in like, hey, I heard about this position, like reach out, see what they say, I can put in a good word. During my time at Florida, I don't remember kind of like talking to managers from other teams, but like, for example, me and Dylan was coming in as a manager as I was leaving at Florida, and we had never met until the women's Final Four that year, but we had followed each other on Twitter and interacted on Twitter, and then finally just like met at the Final Four, and like here we are. And then in terms of like the conference, whenever we're visiting teams or they're coming to us, usually they'll put a manager in charge of like greeting your team and taking you into practice or like for game day, whoever. And I always tell the managers like, hey, listen, like I know you're with Green Bay, Milwaukee, but if you ever need anything, like please feel free to reach out to me. Like, you never know who we know. When I was at Milwaukee, I was talking to one of the managers, and I think it was like 15 minutes before the game, just like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, do you really enjoy this position? Like, please let me know if I can help in any way. And it's just another connection to be made and to have. But that's kind of where I come from.
I think for me, being at the Division II school, I was the only manager on the women's side. And then on the men's side, the manager there was Raymond, who is now the GA at Cleveland State. And halfway through the first year and then the second year, we kind of roomed together, like on away trips and things like that. And so we became friends, and he worked the AAU circuit. I was coaching in that circuit that he kind of helped put on tournaments. And so that was really cool to have that connection with him. But like, as far as our conference, like, I feel like all of the schools in our conference were pretty limited. So they either had one or none, like no managers on their, around their program. It was like the GA that was doing everything. So I felt like it was easier to kind of talk to some of the GAs when we'd go on like travel trips and things like that. But as far as managers, like, being in the same state, like I followed Dylan on Twitter, and I kind of went from his page to following other managers just to have that networking opportunity and kind of get to know people, and see what they were doing and all of that kinds of stuff. But I think it's super important because, just like the title of this Zoom is Grow the Game, like these are going to be the people that I'm either going to be on their staff one day, or I could be looking for someone to help fill my staff one day. And this is like the pool of people that we're going to be looking for. So I think it's super important to have those relationships that, like, 10 years down the line, I'm going to be like, who's going to be perfect for this position? Ashton. She's a go-getter, whatever. It's like you form those connections right now, and it leaves an impact because we're all going through it together. So I think that's super important. And after Pat answers this, I want to go back to Garrett's question really quick and answer that.
All right. So when we speak on connections, man, I was always the one that coach would, as a manager, I was always the one coach would, kind of go to be like, hey, what time is practice here at this gym? What time do we have practice at night? What time do we have shoot around in the morning? The whole protocol. So my networking, really came where I had to really be on the phone, contacting all the assistant coaches, dobos, anybody on that staff, you name it. I had to contact them because our coach, he wanted to know up front, the protocol of what's going on. Let's see, another form of my networking came when, just playing in manager games, the night before the big game, us managers had our game. And so, during that time, either, just chilling on the sideline, ready to check in the game, a quick little conversation here and there, like, what do you want to do after this? How's things going now? How do you see yourself, elevating and things of that nature? And another big one, of course, working camps, but just I hate that this year that what's going on in the world. I hope that enough managers could have got together and went to the College Basketball Academy to work that event. I was fortunate enough to work it last year. I went to the Houston one. I'm talking about, when I tell you, it was a real great event. We stayed the whole week. It was 1 week, 2 sessions. So you're looking at, Sunday through Wednesday, you got 150 kids. Then Thursday through Sunday, another 150 kids. So, but on top of that, the networking really came in because you were able to, talk to the coaches. And another thing about that one that is unique is that is the last live period event. And with it being the last live period event, all the coaches from across the world is going to come, because after that event, regular school starts. So they're trying to get in what they can get in. So, hey, I looked at that as an opportunity to, possibly shake a few hands, meet a few coaches, slide a resume here or there, you know. And so I just hate that, you know, with what's going on, that event is not going on this year. And Garrett, to your question, I wrote you in the chat, but yeah, man, I really had to distance myself from those guys. Like I couldn't get caught out, you know,
Right.
with them after hours, especially after hours. So that caused me to, you know, I guess what you could say, not like the club scene, I guess. So
Yeah, like I said, it got to be a little bit tougher. The fact that you kind of finished up your undergrad with them, and those were some of your guys going into
right.
that while you were going